Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
Friends and family in Christ, thank you so much for tuning in. You know, there are some topics that as a Bible-believing Christian, we would hope or we would wish that would get more exposure and that the media would, I don't want to say cover, but at least mention every now and then. And there's a problem, a massive problem in our country, and that is for child exploitation and sex trafficking. We're not going to get into a lot of the heaviest of that, but we are going to talk about some stats and ways that you can get involved and support people who are on this podcast. And I want to bring in our guest today. His name is Brad Hopp, and he's a member of Samaritan Ministries and also the founder of Teshuah Tea Company, and that's TeshuahTea.com. We're going to ask him a little bit about that because a lot of us love coffee and tea. We have it every day. We might as well get it from the right places that can fund something that we believe in. So we can't wait to dive into this topic because we don't hear enough about it. Brad, thank you for your time today. Welcome to Worldview Matters, brother.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so you've been doing this for about 8 years, you said, before we got on the podcast. But let's go back. I think our audience would be really blessed and intrigued to hear your story, go back to your accident, and what brought you to what you're doing now, please.
Yeah. So in 2017, actually, it would have been it was 1 month ago today, actually.
Wow.
Or just about. I had a tractor rollover. I live on a small acreage, and I had a classic Great American tractor, a 1950s Farmall, with the narrow front, and I had a loader on it, and we were cleaning up the yard, and I was driving down the shoulder of the road and was going to go down through the ditch, and I hit a little dip on the shoulder of the road, and it barrel rolled the tractor sideways down into the ditch, and the tractor landed on my pelvis. The rear wheel did, and I reached up and I found the axle blind. I know I had so many angels that day. It was amazing because I reached up, I found the axle blind. I couldn't see it. I'm laying underneath of it, and I push, and the whole thing just goes hop. And I crawled out from under it 5 or 6 feet away with a broken pelvis. And as soon as I got up from under it, I could hear the battery sparking while I was under it. I mean,
oh my goodness.
You don't process that at the time, but I could hear it. And so the battery started on fire and started the fuel on fire. And yeah, the fire got within about a foot of me. And fortunately, somebody was coming down the road towards me and saw the tractor go over, and they stopped and called 911. My son came over and kept the fire away from me. And I live in a small town, or outside of a small town, and our local fire department was already going to go do a controlled burn. So they were already sitting at the firehouse waiting and ready to go. And the EMTs were there, the ambulance crews were there and stuff. So they were out there the ambulance and EMTs were probably there within 7 minutes-ish.
Wow. Wow, that is truly a miracle. That is really miraculous that someone saw it and then the EMTs got there. By the way, the EMTs described your survival as a miracle. So go ahead, Brad.
Yeah. So one of the EMTs was my actual student. He was my driver's education instructor from when I was a kid, and 30 some years ago. And he actually goes to church with my mom, and he said to some people at church, he goes, "Brad shouldn't be here." He goes, he shouldn't be sitting here. He'd been on a lot of calls. He's been an EMT for a lot of years, and he's seen these farm accidents, and they don't usually end very well. So yeah, he goes, "I don't know what they're doing at that church that Brad goes to, but he goes, whatever they're doing, we need to check it out because he goes, he shouldn't be here."
Yeah. So they were praying after you went to the hospital, but talk about your injuries and just really what happened. Now let's just rewind just a little bit. Brad is from Iowa, and he was doing some farming. He also delivered fire trucks, and you still on the side deliver fire trucks from what I understand. But when we talk about what you're now doing, it's astounding that you're able to still do all this, Brad. So talk about your injuries, and then what the heck did you do? That must have been an expensive surgery or surgeries. Go ahead and share that
Yep.
development.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, my pelvis broke, and so it crushed the right side of my pelvis into the sacrum, which is the triangular bone at the bottom of your spine, and then it pulled the left side away, and then it broke it in front too, because your pelvis is like a pretzel; it'll never break in one spot. And so they took me to Sioux City. Sioux City couldn't do my surgery, and they took me down to Omaha, and I ended up with one of the top 2 surgeons in the nation for my type of surgery, and he put pins and screws and all that stuff, and I was supposed to be 3 months of no walking, 6 months of no working, and 6 weeks after my surgery, I walked out of my follow-up appointment, and 2 weeks later, I was dragging luggage across Chicago Air and stuff. So it was amazing.
Goodness.
It was about $150,000 in total, or it was going to be about $150,000 in total expense.
Okay, so now the question. Did your insurance cover it? What did you have for insurance? How did that all work? Because I know you are now a member of Samaritan Ministries. So tell us about that.
Yep. So we were part of Samaritan at the time, and Samaritan covered all but $300 at the time. Our share, it's gone up a little bit just because health costs have gone up. But at the time, our share was $300. So out of that, they helped us negotiate it down, and we got it down to like 75,000, I think. And out of that 75,000, our share was $300 that we had to cover.
Wow. So for the average person who pays for expensive health insurance, I don't think they fully understand, and I might not even fully understand how this works. Can you walk us through that? Because when you hear health, insurance sharing, it's hard to understand, right? And there's so many good things about this that I was just reading some notes. I was reminded of this. Samaritan Ministries was founded in 1994, and there's no network restrictions. That's one big thing. Thanks, Jeff, for putting that up. You can go to the website, you guys. It's SamaritanMinistries.org. So tell us how that works, Brad.
So the way it works is there's a whole group of Christians, and we have chosen as a group, to apply our worldview to taking care of our brothers and sisters. As a Christian, we should believe in taking care of our brothers and sisters. And if a brother in Christ or a sister in Christ needs assistance, that's really the model that Samaritan has taken and stuff. And that's one of the reasons I really like Samaritan. It's not insurance per se; it's a health sharing group of people that we all share each other's medical bills. And so every month we get a letter, and it tells who we need to send our share that month to. And so then we write our check or do it be electronic or whatever, send it to that person, and then they use that money to help cover their medical expense. And Samaritan checks up on it, make sure that money is going where it needs to go and stuff. So there's accountability and stuff. So okay, so you said yours is a couple $100. So does that mean is that your share that you would send to someone else instead of to Samaritan Ministries, like their office or anything? No. So two separate things. So our share that we would send to somebody else is, I think right now it's about $750 or $800 a month. Okay. But we're on the most expensive plan. We have, several kids still at home and stuff. And I wanted to make sure that if we ever had a catastrophic incident, that we were fully covered and stuff. So we're on the highest plan. But then at the time, we had to cover $300 out of the medical expenses per incident. So, so that's where that came in. Okay.
So you go through this. Did you say in 6 months you were back up and around and walking and
6 weeks.
Oh,
it was supposed to be 3 months of no walking, 6 months of no working, and 6 weeks after the surgery, I walked out of my follow-up appointment.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, for someone that is, you had a broken pelvis.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yep. I mean, that is astounding, actually. So, there's answered prayer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, do you want to share anything else about the accident or about that process, the recovery, before we move on? Because I really want to talk about Teshuah Tea as well.
Yeah, it was just amazing to see how many different things all came together. And one of the things that I really like about Samaritan real quick is that when you send your payment to somebody, you a lot of times will write notes to each other and give them letters of encouragement and stuff. And that was a really big deal too. I mean,
That's
I have
neat.
a whole box of a whole stack of cards and letters from people and stuff. So that was neat.
That is amazing. It really sounds fantastic. And I know people that are on that too. So, Brad, let's talk about the tea company now. When did this start, and whose idea was it, and what are the benefits of supporting Teshuah Tea?
So, my friend Andrew is a missionary in Asia, and he and the team were rescuing underage girls out of sex trafficking. And he had come to our church several times, and I was really enthralled by what he was doing and how his team was working and stuff. And I really saw the benefit that they were doing and the work that they were doing and the results that they were getting. And so he shared some pictures one day of some bracelets that the girls had made and that they had rescued.
Wow.
I'm like, I want to get off the road. I don't want to keep delivering fire trucks all the time. And so I was like, I want to be home full time. And so I was like, I can start Brad's little bracelet shop. It was the initial thought, but then it became, let's make this about something more. And so then it just developed into Teshuah Tea and Coffee Company. And that was like the first 5-minute thought, but then it became Teshuah Tea and Coffee Company. And we really, our biggest goal is to economically fund the restoration houses around the world that are trying to do this really important work.
Okay, let's talk about that. Over on your Facebook page, Teshuah Tea Company on Facebook, one of the posts from a couple months ago says, "Rescue takes a night. Recovery takes years. One is an event. The other is infrastructure." And that's what you're trying to do. And before you elaborate on that a little bit more, Brad, I want to just share a couple of the stats that I got just from your website. It says an estimated 1.5 million children are trafficked globally, yet fewer than 2,000 long-term residential recovery beds exist for minors. I know I can see part of the problem that, the media doesn't really cover this. Unfortunately, these stories, and it's tragic, but go ahead and share whatever you'd like from this point, because it is a problem. We don't hear enough about it, and you're trying to do something about it.
Well, one of the major issues is, like you said, there's about 100 beds in the United States. And so when Tom Holman, the Secretary of, I think he's Health and Human Services, if I remember right, when he announced that, hey, we rescued these 145,000 kids from sex trafficking, I'm like, that's great. Where are you putting them? And I'm not trying to be cold. I'm not trying to be heartless. But the fact of the matter is, you have 145,000 kids fighting over 100 beds. Where do you put them? And the thing that we sat down and we took a look at was, and you and I were talking about this before the show, I was getting ready to do a radio interview back in November, and in preparation for that, I started looking at, we have 40 beds in our 2 rescue homes over in Asia. And I'm like, we must be microscopic. I mean, we've got to be so tiny, then we're just a blip on the wall.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I realized that the Andrews work was 2.25% of the entire world supply of beds. And I went, oh my golly, this is huge. This is a big problem. And then and I've been doing this a long time. I mean, we've been trying to economically empower Andrew's group and homes and stuff. And then I realized how massive the problem really is. And these restoration houses, they're oftentimes donor funded, but you have to constantly be in donor fundraising mode. You're constantly fundraising. But yet you're dealing with a problem that is not donor funded. I.e., traffickers aren't going out and raising donations to traffic their girls. They're using capitalism. And I know that sounds gross, but really they're using capitalism to generate income. And yet we're trying to combat that problem on a donor fundraising model. And really what we're expecting the ladies and the people that run the restoration houses to do is to We want you to take these young kids or even adult women, and we want you to teach them to drive a car. We want you to teach them how to steer. We want you to teach them how to buckle their seatbelt, run the steering column, or run the gear shifter, run the turn signal, do all this stuff. But we want you to do it with a car with no motor in it. And we want you to go out and get out and push the car down the road at the same time. Because that's what they're having to do. They're having to raise funds, and I would equate that to pushing the car so that it goes someplace. And why not take our worldview of business and take it and apply it to raising funds on a stable, steady basis for these restoration houses. And so that's what we're working to do, is we're working to set up a line of tea and coffee shops that their whole goal, our whole model, is designed around having donors fund the facilities, i.e. buy the coffee and tea shops for us. We run them, we operate them, we manage them, we control them, we do everything. And then 100% of our profits from that go into the restoration facilities. And really the economics of that works out like this. A small mom and pop typical coffee shop is going to run on a 2 to 6% margin. A Dunkin' Donuts and a Starbucks is going to run, in the 10 to 18% margin. Where if we can have donors fully fund a tea and coffee shop, that coffee shop now operates at a 25 to 35% margin. And so 100% of that profit can go into the restorations facilities. That's after all expenses. That's after labor. That's after, electricity, everything. And so now we can fully fund these restoration houses on a long-term basis.
Wow. This is massive, friends. I'm so glad we're talking about this. And I encourage you guys to share this podcast because this is a very important issue. I do want to mention some good news. I mean, I love Tim Tebow and some of the work that he's done. Just about everything he's got, he touches. He does it with the heart of the Lord and heart of compassion. But there's news recently that 145,000 missing children in the U.S. were found. And you're helping some of these victims, Brad Hopp. Exploitation of children has been an issue in the U.S. Tim Tebow recently testified before Congress. I think Senator Josh Hawley was bringing him in, and they shared a map. It showed how severe this matter is. Tim Tebow gave Congress a map of over 338,000 unique IP addresses that have traded or shared images of children being sexually abused in the past 6 months. And the mainstream media, pretty much, with the exception of a few, very few, ignore this problem. One more thing, and I'll let you respond, Brad. Reported 323,000 illegal immigrant children went missing under the Biden-Harris administration. So they came across the border unaccompanied, and yet they were allowed to be placed with smugglers, sex traffickers, people who got their hands on them. It's just tragic. But we've got our own problem, aside from the immigration problem in the U.S. with all these IP addresses that are feeding this demonic situation. So, Brad, go ahead and share a little bit more.
So, one of the things is that you have this massive problem, and we need more restoration facilities, but again, it just comes down to funding. These facilities need our long-term care, because when we rescue, so Andrew, he and the team have rescued 63 girls total so far. 40 of them are still under our care, and the youngest of those girls that we've rescued is 11. So that means we are going to probably care for her for at least 7 years. That's a lot of money over time. And that's the thing that people need to understand, is this is not a one and done type situation where you get these kids rescued. A lot of times these children don't have a place to go back to. Or the home that they came out of was the home that got them trafficked in the first place. And there's a movie out If people have a chance to watch it, I would highly recommend it. It's called Grid Shock. And here's one of the biggest parts of the problem is we all think, especially here in Iowa, we think that doesn't happen here. What people don't realize is the Super Bowl is the #1 trafficking event in the United States.
Yep.
The Iowa State Fair is ranked as #2.
Oh my
The
goodness.
Iowa State Fair.
Iowa.
Mm-hmm. And here's the problem, and this is one of the things that they pointed out in the movie Grid Shock. In the movie, they talk about it. They're like, the reason it's able to be such an issue here in Iowa, and yet nobody talks about it, is because we're conservative. We think it doesn't happen here. It couldn't happen here. We're too conservative for that. And we're out in the cornfields. We're kind of isolated, and so it becomes a trafficker's dream come true.
Jeez.
Because nobody's looking over your shoulders. And it was amazing to me as I was watching this movie a couple weeks ago. It was really interesting, the varied backgrounds of the 3 young women that they interviewed. One of them came out of a troubled family. One of them came out of a really overly strict home, and she knew she was going to get into trouble for being late one night, and so she just on a whim, out of nowhere, just decided, hey, I'm going to run away. No forethought, no plan. And then the third girl was a straight A student, grew up in a good home, knew what right from wrong, went to college. And she goes, I went to college in Western Iowa, and I met this guy. We started dating, and he ended up becoming my trafficker and forced me into sex trafficking. And she goes, I was trafficked into the multi-million-dollar houses. Well, then after the showing, the young lady that's the executive director of one of the local restoration houses here in Sioux City, she says to me, she goes, that's Morningside College she's talking about, right? And I'm like, what? That's a college that I've driven past thousands of times. It's right here in Sioux City.
Wow.
It's a private Methodist college and stuff. And then she goes, yeah, and the $1 million houses she's talking about are Okoboji.
Say that again?
It's Okoboji, Iowa, which is the Iowa Great Lakes. It's if you're from Iowa, it's like up at the northern border of Iowa, and it's this really beautiful, pristine lake, and there's all these multi-million-dollar houses around it and stuff, and it's become the tourist spot. Well, that's where this girl was being trafficked into.
Wow.
And it's right here.
Wow. Well, let's talk about this mentality for a minute. We've got 5 minutes left, Brad. Wherever there's electricity, wherever you can plug in a computer, or wherever you can have an iPhone, it doesn't have to be Chicago, LA, San Francisco, New York, Atlanta. These we're talking about Midwest, anywhere. So that's why this problem is so pervasive. I was reading those stats we showed about the IP addresses. They're all around the country. But here's another stat. Just to raise awareness, to be reminded this problem is out there, friends. 40.3 million people are trapped in modern-day slavery, according to the International Labor Organization. And to help girls and women who have been rescued from trafficking in Asia, this is one of the main reasons you started Teshuah Tea Company. I'm sure you were maybe surprised to learn not too far into your work that it's a major problem right here in America too, right?
Right. Well, and one of the biggest issues, and part of the reason that we focus on tea and coffee, is if you were to look at the coffee belt and the tea belt around the world, it really goes from the Tropic of Capricorn to the Tropic of Cancer, and that belt is a major hub for sex trafficking victims, because a lot of times you're dealing with impoverished villages that don't have economic stability, where they're in fantastic coffee and tea growing regions, where if we can come in and I grew up on a dairy farm in Iowa. And so I tend to think agriculture, I tend to think, salt of the earth type thinking. And so we looked at it and we said, what if we could bring economic empowerment by teaching these people to have more agriculture, have, coffee and tea farms, and bring them the coffee and tea plants, and bring the processing knowledge, and bring these things to them. And then what we can do is we can stem some of the tide. We're not going to completely solve the problem, and I know that, But we can stem some of the tide by bringing economic empowerment to these really impoverished villages. Like one of the missionaries that we work with, his village's per capita income when he started getting them to grow coffee, it was $200 a year per capita.
Wow.
By getting them to grow coffee, they were able to triple the town's annual income. And then he just took up another 28,000 coffee plants that just started producing here a couple of years ago. And so, that's probably quadrupled or more by now. And so when you bring that kind of empowerment to a village, now those girls that would normally answer an ad for, hey, come down to this big city and be a model and do this and that and the other thing, now they don't need to because they have economic empowerment right there in their village. And so really it's a multifaceted approach. And I think that that's really the way we really need to deal with this is let's bring economic empowerment to these villages. Then let's turn around and use a business to generate income that we can then turn around and fund long-term restoration facilities to help the ones that we didn't get to quick enough. And we can help them recover on a long-term basis. And we can bring the hope of Jesus Christ to them. We can bring, work skills and crafts to them. We can give them everything that they need that a normal family would give them to stand on their own so that when they leave our care, they don't have to ever be a victim again.
And that's what we're talking about too, is one of the bottom lines, so they don't go back to any kind of a life. It says, women and girls who are fortunate to stay at Teshuah House typically stay from 8 to 10 years. They're taught skills after they're rescued. They're taught skills they need to provide for themselves. 100% of Teshuah Tea's profits after expenses go to saving trafficked women. 100%. And you've currently, it says you've got 41 individuals right now that you're housing at the current location and helping with their immediate needs: clothes, toiletries, food, medication. Brad, this is important work. This is God's work. We thank you for your heart and what you're doing and what He led you to, and then for your obedience to say, yes, God, yes, I'm going to do something about this. So praise God. Friends, it's Teshuah, TESHUAHT.com. Brother, thank you so much. God bless you and your work, and may it expand and grow, and may you just get more help doing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Friends, share this podcast, please. And we thank you also for praying for Brad and for those who are trying to make a difference here. God bless you. And as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.